Welcome to MONSTERMEN.
And I'm not arguing because we have a guest and I have to behave myself when there's someone in the house, right?
True.
Is that the rule? You told me that a long time
Not
ago.
in the house, virtually in the house because we're all under quarantine.
Yeah, actually, this works for once. By the way, this time I'm in my belfry. You're in your lair. We are joined by author Laurel Hightower, who is the author of Whispers in the Dark. And we had to have her on the show because Jason and I, without collaborating, started reading her book at the exact same time. And I was like, we got to have her on MONSTERMEN. So, Laurel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I thought that was really crazy that the two, Jason and I, and we don't live anywhere near each other. Jack, we don't talk to him unless we're doing the show.
No, we've never actually seen him in person.
We've never met him in person.
We've known him now for like 2-3 years and never seen him in person.
Yeah, so that him and I both picked up your book at the same time. It was just weird. I'm like, you know what? If we don't talk to Laurel now, this is the time.
It's kismet, you know.
It is.
If that's going to meet up like that. That is crazy. I assumed you guys had like some sort of assigned reading project. You know.
No, the teacher doesn't give us projects anymore.
This guy, Hunter Shea, reads faster than anybody I've ever met in my life. So if we had reading assignments, it would have to be like 3 months for me. And he'd be like, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? So.
3 months in, Jack. I'm almost at that last chapter of Mice and Men. I'm like, I just finished all of the Lord of the Rings.
You banged through Dr. Sleep in like a week, and it's like that thick.
I remember my greatest feat was knocking out Under the Dome in 3 days.
Wow. Oh my God.
And I was working.
You rushed right to that ending, didn't you?
That was such a weird ending.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the show on TV, so I don't know how good that's going to be. But
so, Laurel,
I haven't watched it.
Laurel, your book, is it available in hard copy form or only on Kindle?
No, it's there are I guess what do they call them? Trade paperbacks available. Yeah.
Because I want to read it, but I like the physical book a little bit more than the Kindle, if possible. So I'm going to have to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about your book first, because he's read it. I plan to read it. But when he told me the description of it, I was like, oh, damn, that sounds really good. So tell everybody about your book first so we get everybody on the same footing as us.
And tell Jack the end.
I could probably lose track and accidentally do that. And it's funny because it's like, you know, when you're writing something, it makes perfect sense to you and you have all these outlines. And then when someone asks you to describe it, you're like, oh, I mean, the cover's red, you know, there's some ghosts. There's a chick in it, the chick in it. So it's, okay. So it came out in December, 2018, Whispers in the Dark, published through Journal Stone. And yes, it is trying to remember what my agent called it, a paranormal police procedural.
That's perfect description for it.
I think that was his stab at a marketing term. But I still think that, so I work at a law firm, kind of a swanky one. And I love my job. I really love the attorneys that I work for. I'm a paralegal. And they very sweetly on my release day, because I didn't have anything planned, they had this little party for me as a surprise. It was wonderful. But then I found myself describing to these, you know, partners, these guys, these very, you know, kind of, I don't want to say stodgy, but, you know, these very formal sort of attorneys. And they're like, oh, what did you write, Laurel? And I'm like, paranormal police procedural, you know, and they're like, could you speak up? I'm like, no, I can't. I can't, because saying that at home versus saying that at my office, you know, it's awkward, but
it's better than when my agent once calls me up and says, hey, what do you have in your writing drawer? I said, my writing drawer. I don't know what that is. He says, I'm looking for werewolf porn. Do you have any?
And did you?
That never crossed my mind. But I knew a guy who wrote kind of werewolf porn, and she signed him up right away.
I love that you got a guy.
See?
You got a guy.
I got a guy.
Like, I got a guy. I don't.
You asked me like, oh, I had a fender bender. Do you know like a auto body guy? Yeah, I got a guy.
W.D. Gagliardi. He writes these wolf I don't know if he still does anymore, but he used to write these kind of like sexy wolf. There's a lot of sex going on with wolves, people and wolves, people transforming. It was nuts.
At least the market's probably not saturated on that. So
You'd be
that
surprised.
I know of.
Really, there's like The Howling and Wolf Cop. They both have like wolf sex scenes. That's about all I can remember.
Wolf Cop. Okay. I'm going to add that to the. I have not seen this.
You should check out Wolf Cop. It is
Wolf Cop. Okay.
Yes, that's a must. Do not watch Wolf Cop 2. Wolf Cop.
just Wolf Cop.
have to watch.
Don't bother with the
Just
sequel.
Wolf Cop.
Wolf Cop
Okay.
is. It's wonderful.
The best wolf sex scene ever.
I love that your agent asked you for full wolf porn because it's, again, like it's kind of a high level firm, but I also work with absolute nut jobs. So I mean, we have a lot of fun, and the managing partner began telling everyone in the firm that I was writing zombie porn because we put it on the main, the mainly firm website, so all the offices see, Laurel Hightower wrote a book, and and then anywhere he went, oh, it's zombie porn, you should totally get some. And he also lives next to my mother-in-law, so pretty sure he told her that,
It's like The Walking Dead with full frontal. It's awesome.
Next, you know what? This is a missed opportunity. That's what I should have said when you asked me to tell you about the book. Yes, Walking Dead with full frontal.
Maybe you should write the book now. It's your new
that's
project.
That's what's next. Zombie porn.
Someday when I dip
It's
my
out there.
someday when
I
I
have no
dip my
doubt.
toe into the writing pool, maybe I'll start with some side hustle on that kind of thing. Who knows?
I think you should. That could be your calling, man. We don't know.
I have 3 gargoyle porn books on my Kindle.
That
They were gifted to me from a publisher, and they're only about 60 pages each. And I just remember reading them and go, and we're talking stone gargoyles, not living gargoyles. And I thought they should call this series Chafing. That should be
yeah, somebody didn't think that through, I don't think. But
No, it was crazy.
Wow.
Jack's like, all right, show's over. We're not
So-
going down this road.
That's a great segue into it. So tell us about yourself in the horror. What are your roots as a horror fan? Porn aside.
porn aside. Okay,
Yeah.
leaving the porn out. It's a family episode. It's a family show.
The Manson family.
To my knowledge, nobody that I work with or like in my real life, listens to Ink Heist really. And I kind of hope that they never do, because it's going to get awkward, if they do. But whatever. I'm going to just own it at that point. So horror roots. As so many of us started watching and reading way too early because nobody was really policing that. And my mom is a big horror fan, and so she had a lot of Stephen King and Clive Barker. I picked up a lot of those things, and they didn't really put any sort of limitation on what we watched at what age. So I don't remember being really freaked out by anything, and I'm trying to remember anything specific that I watched. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those, start early reading it, and scary stories were always my favorite. That was all I ever wanted to rent. It was all, it was all I ever wanted to read. And so it's been one of these things that, I keep gushing over, but I'm used to read a little faster than I do now because I have a 2-year-old. So,
Yeah, that'll do it.
It does. It can put a dent in that. And I felt like I had sort of run through all the available horror, that I could find, like, I guess, commercially. And it was sort of depressing. I was making a list of all the authors that I liked and thinking, do I just have to wait for them to write the next thing? And then when I started, plunging into indie horror, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Now I will never finish all of this, which is a whole different problem, but I prefer this problem very much.
Absolutely. So we can thank your mom.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, good. Way to go, Mom. For me, it was my dad. Like, he loved movies, so he'd watch anything, and he read everything. So in that mix was a lot of horror. So and he didn't give it. It's like, go ahead. You want to watch softcore porn? If there's a werewolf in it, go have fun.
My father wasn't necessarily a horror fan, but he'd have the TV on, and we grew up in the time of there were TV movies and things like that, or they would show the horror stuff. There were selected times where they always showed horror movies. So whether it was midnight on Saturday night or 5 o'clock on a Saturday, like you always knew that you could find horror. But like I would just remember like wandering into the living room one night, my dad would be like, "Oh, come here, watch this. It's a movie about the Bermuda Triangle." So I look back now and I'll mention to him like, "Oh, Dad, you know what I found on YouTube? That movie we saw about the Bermuda Triangle that changed my life." And he's like, "I don't remember that."
Such special moments.
But
he should have faked it. I feel like as a parent, that's likely because I get forgetting it, but I'm gonna fake it. I'm gonna be like, "Man, that was a beautiful moment for me too."
One of the things that I must have been 10 years old, and there was a BBC Dracula, and I missed there was a 3-part, and I missed the first night, and the next day goes, "You got to see this Dracula that's on. It's on tonight," and it scared the hell out of me at 10 years old. And that's one of the ones that when I found it years later on DVD, I was like, "Dad, I found that thing." He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that," and he actually remembered scenes from it. So little things like that, or like watching The Night Stalker and things like that.
The Night Stalker was huge. I have a question. We're recording this. What's today? March 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah. I've been home for so long I can't remember.
I know.
This is during the coronavirus craziness. Like for myself, I have a daughter who's been tested and been waiting almost a week to find out if she has it. So she's living in a room. We're all in separate rooms now. It's just a bizarre way to live.
Yeah.
Everybody's freaking out. I'm actually enjoying it because I've been writing a lot, reading a lot, and watching a lot of movies. It's kind of like all I want to do. Oh, and drinking. So like, this is like nirvana. What are you? I don't know how Kentucky is right now. So tell us what's the mood there, and what are kind of the things you're either watching for comfort or stockpiling so you can like indulge yourself after your child falls asleep.
Right. Because otherwise it's only indulging him. It is, I think it's pretty close to a lot of the rest of the country, and not, as much like the larger metropolises, it's probably not comparable to that. We are not at a shelter in place kind of a point. My job and my husband's both he's always been able to work from home, and the poor guy had the flu the week before all this hit. So he'd been working from home for a week already. Yeah. And then, right. Then they moved to all work at home. And then I think the fun thing for us has been, he's not used to me being here working at home when he's working at home. And I think we're both just kind of like, "Oh, it's good to see you, but also I'm gonna need you to, not bust up in this space where
don't you look at me. I'm working."
Yeah. We keep doing it to each other, so one will be busy and go one, the other one will come in to talk to him. It's like, no, actually working, really, really have things to do, but we do it to each other, so.
Is he the sign on the door?
Yeah, we do need signs, actually, probably. Yeah,
might be a good thing.
It's going to be fun starting this week because my son's daycare closed on Friday. So we are going to be home with him. But, it'll be interesting because the big thing for him so far has been, he's used to me not getting home until a little past 6. I switched up my hours to have more time with him in the morning, and I see him at lunch, but I get home late. And, I'm still working when my husband gets home with him, and he's like, "Okay, need you now." And I'm like totally e-filing something, and he does not care. So
no.
We're going to be tag teaming, but I'm sitting, this is where I always record Ink Heist. This is my son's playroom, which used to be my husband's office, but children basically take over your entire house, which is also now my office. And so it's just like multi-purpose, multi-use, covered in electronic things that talk to you while you're in the middle of conference calls and all that kind of fun stuff.
If you work like this craziness aside, if you work so many, you work so long and you've had a 2-year-old, when do you write? Like what do you where's your time that you carve out?
Weekends while he's napping. From 1 to 3, somewhere in that area, 2 days a week. That is the majority of my writing. And I luckily kind of had a lot that I had already kind of in the works before I had him, because I was, a beached whale for a long period of time and just sort of flopping around on the couch with nothing to do but write, So
Yeah.
it's
Hey.
the timing of the publication of Whispers was funny because my son was born in January, and then I went back to work, after maternity leave, and then they're like, oh, hey, we sold it. So, anyways, you have all these edits due, and I'm like, motherfucker,
Are you crazy?
I was doing nothing for so long.
They only send edits when you're busy. And
Yes.
it's every time with me. Every time. I'm like, oh, sure. And it's always like, hey, I know normally I ask for 2 weeks. Can you get them back in 1? Yeah, sure. Okay. You're going to get it at 11:59 p.m. on the last day.
Yes. Yeah. I will make that deadline, but by God, it's going to be to the last minute.
So what are some of the horror movies that... I'm sorry, Jack.
Go ahead.
You take the next one. What are some of the horror movies that you'd like to watch if you guys are like shut in?
Oh my gosh. So there's a big long list, but Rich actually very kindly went through one night. I think he went through like Shudder and Prime and Netflix and just made a list of all the ones that he thought were worthwhile, because I have like 8 minutes of free time a day, so like, trying to watch a movie and you waste it on that crappy movie. So like, there's a big long list. I want to rewatch The Descent, which I loved.
Good call.
Oh God, that's so good. And Shane told me there's a Descent 2, which I did not know.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw that either.
Is it not good or not worthy? Damn. Yeah.
Not after
it's
you
rare.
watch Descent. It's a big letdown.
Yeah, that was intense. That was really good. I'm trying to think, because there were...
You have Shudder?
I do not, but I think I'm going to get it for this, this very closed-in period. Because right? It's the only thing that's prevented me is having the time to actually like click the button and order it. So,
there's a few movies that Hunter and I, since we do Final Guys, our other podcast, and that one, basically we watch movies every week and talk about them. And then at the end of the year, we have our best of list. So we are just like accumulating this knowledge of movies and whatever. Last year on our top lists, there's a few movies that you might want to like bookmark. One of them was The Nightingale, which is...
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, like definitely the kid should not be in the room or anywhere near it.
It's a period piece, and it's just emotionally devastating.
Oh, nice. Okay,
it's real.
Very
Both of us wrote our own reviews of it, and when I read his, I went back and edited mine because we had written the same sentence to open it up. Was basically like, this is probably the best movie on my list, but I've listed it number 3 for this reason. Like, we both said the same thing. Like, there's another one called Villains. Another one called Villains. That's about this young couple that like they stick up a gas station or something like that, and then they run out of gas, so they break into a house, and the house is owned by these two loonies, and there's something in the basement of interest, and
Nice.
everything. It's a great movie. Hunter, you would.
I love Micah Monroe forever because if It Follows.
I love It Follows.
And
that was so good.
Skarsgård from It is the guy in it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, he's the boyfriend. They're like a dopey Bonnie and Clyde.
And the guy from Burn Notice is the owner of the house, and what's her name? Kevin Bacon's wife.
Kira Sedgwick.
Kira Sedgwick.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a really good one. There's so many. So I mean, right now, like I watched Prince of Darkness today. Like John Carpenter stuff. If I'm in a situation like this, I don't know. I'm not digging new stuff. I'm not gravitating towards watching something new. I want to watch the stuff that makes me all warm and fuzzy. And warm and fuzzy means blood and screaming and craziness, but that's what I've been doing.
I watch Poltergeist it's kind of my comfort horror movie. Have had just like utter insanity happen with my son's daycare right before all of this hit. And I had one night where I was just so livid. I was like, well, not sleeping, getting hammered and watching Poltergeist. And It was like just the most soothing thing,
Right.
Just watching that tree come through the window, just, pool full of corpses. Who doesn't want to just curl up to that?
I
do.
I still give a standing ovation every time that kid starts punching the clown.
Whoever, and I am terrible about like really looking into, who directed and who wrote and all that kind of thing. So, I suck about that. I should, but what I have always loved about that, I feel like that is, and I am a sucker for a love story. I don't feel like it has to be shoehorned into anything if it doesn't fit, but I do enjoy that element. And I think Poltergeist is just the quintessential love story of marriage, which is not something you always see. You see people fall in love. You don't see a whole lot of people, how love appears at that point in a marriage.
Right.
But man, I mean, right before she goes through the closet, just the love he has for her and what she's can depend on him to do. And even their, mild argument about who, the children are afraid of. It was just so real, their whole relationship was. And I feel like that's just, oh, sorry, my toddler's going to bed. Bye, sweetheart.
Good night.
Mwah. Sleep well, buddy.
If I keep drinking whiskey, I'm going to bed.
Well, yeah, gosh, it's like 7:30.
It's going to be
Time
a
for bed.
rough night. You know what's funny, though? Being home for I'm like out by 10 because I'm up at like 5:30, no matter what, even on weekends. Since I've been home, man, it's midnight. I'm like, I can stay up till midnight, and I'm doing it. It's great. I was watching Glow last night.
5:30.
This morning I woke up at 6:30. I went to bed like 1:30. I was like, I could take a nap. I'll be fine.
Who needs sleep?
Yeah. And then I didn't take a nap. I've been too busy.
It's funny with all this downtime, like, or quote unquote, like where we are right now, that literally they just closed the parks and beaches for the next couple of weeks. And New York, I'm in Connecticut. He's in New York. New York's worse than Connecticut, but they're about the same. So like I can't even like go for a walk in the park near my house now. I could go out and probably take a walk around the neighborhood, but I can't go into the park now. More and more you're like, I'm going to read or I'm going to watch a movie when you're not working from home, then you're like, what do? I'll walk into the living room and watch something. And I think it's the same kind of thing he was saying. I'm trying to like change it up a little bit. So last night I watched something from like 1971 or something like that. Night of the Cobra Woman.
Oh my God.
That was,
you really watched that?
I watched it because I was like, what the hell? I'm just in the mood to watch something old schlocky I've never seen and whatever. And as I watched it, I said, you know what? This is one of those ones I probably should have saved for having it on in the background while I was working instead of like my sole attention. But I'm trying to flip flop between, like I looked at my DVD shelf and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go through and start picking out. Like I just watched The Thing recently. I got to go through
I need to rewatch that one.
I was in the theater to see it a week before everything shut down here. So they brought it back one night. It was awesome.
Oh, I love that. I love, we've got an old theater downtown that does that from time to time, especially like at Christmas. They'll show, the old ones. I love that. And they do Rocky Horror midnight show like all through October, which is fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm not a fan of Rocky Horror Picture Show as a movie, but I enjoy the party.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm the same with it.
So watching movies, like I'm up here in the attic one day and I see, oh, there's my high school copy of A Clockwork Orange. So I said, I'm going to read this. I remember spending a whole year talking like them and really disturbing everybody. Viddy well, M&P, viddy well. And I know I'm thinking I'm going to tackle Robert McCammon's Boy's Life again, which is one of my favorite books, but it's a big one. What are some of your like reads? Like if you had nothing to do and no responsibility for the next week, say, just I want you to read. What are you going to read?
Oh man. Um, I have bookshelves at this point that are full of new books that I really just desperately want to and need to. One of the things has been I have to read usually at least one book a week for the podcast. So, to be prepared for that, I usually read one a week. And then, of course, I've usually got other stuff, people's books that I want to read. So I'm just now finishing Alan Baxter's Served Cold, which is excellent.
Awesome. I want to read that.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I used to think that I was not a fan of short stories, but I have been quickly schooled on that in the last year or so, on some of the really excellent ones I've gotten hold of. And then Red Legos, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong because it just sounds like a Lego, like a child's toy. I'm almost certainly saying that wrong. I'm really sorry, Red.
Sounds good to me.
But her Lucid Screams just came out, and I have that I want to read. And I'm loving the Rewind or Die series. Have you guys read any of those?
No.
Never heard of it.
So good. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna screw up the name of it. It's Eddie Generous. Unnerving. Unnerving has been.
Already?
Yeah, so they have this series that they've been releasing of these like little novellas and they're supposed to the feel of them is supposed to be kind of like almost like an 80s horror type throwback. So I think there's like 5 or 6 that are out now, and they've all been like really good.
What's it called? Rewind or Die?
Rewind or Die is a series. I can't remember. Is that like maybe, I don't know how many they've already got on the list for release that are set up, but like Violet Castro had one. It's called Hairspray and Switchblades, which was excellent. Haley Piper had the Cannibal King Benny Rose was really good. So it's yeah, there's some really cool stuff on that list. And then I bought John F.D. Taft's like Gray Matter backlist a little while ago. I read The Fearing this summer, and so I've got a stack of his stuff. And there's just I mean I could sit here for like half an hour and list everything that's on my TBR, but
you know what? A writer needs to be a reader above anything else. Yeah. They need to be a reader.
You mentioned your podcast. It's Ink Heist. Tell us about that a little bit, and then I've got. But actually, before we do that, got any good vampire books you can recommend?
He's all about vampires.
Oh yeah, have you read Maria the Wanted?
No.
That's Violet Castro, and I'll fully admit to being like a giant fangirl of Violet Castro. But Maria the Wanted is just it's a very, very different vampire book than what I'm used to. Just basically at every step where there was an opportunity for it to be cliche, it never was. And I just found myself kind of fist pumping a whole lot, with it. So I love that one. I love that book.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's perfect.
While
Jack's been looking for Maria for years.
Maria. You're right. You have to really be careful. There's so much vampire crap out there. Yeah. So when I'm talking to somebody with the street cred that you have, you got to get the good picks.
Yeah, that one's really good. I love Violet. She's really excellent. She's a very strong writer, and she's just a very fun, very cool person. So I love her books.
Cool. So tell us about Ink Heist.
Yeah, about those degenerates.
How do you nut jobs?
It is so funny to think back now, like on how you meet people, and it's like I was looking for reviews and I submitted a request to Ink Heist, and I directed it to Rich because Shane's was very like, I'm closed, fuck off. And I was like, okay.
That's Shane. Go and fuck yourself.
Yes.
That's Shane.
He's one of my favorite people on Twitter.
Right? It's so I directed it towards Rich, but it was just one email, so I was kind of terrified of doing it wrong. And then he messaged me, he's back, and I'm like, oh Jesus, I fucked it up. I sent it to the guy who was closed, but he was like, no, you know what? This looks interesting. I'll take it on. I can't guarantee when I'll get to it, but okay. So honestly, like I was like somewhat terrified of Shane, like initially, because it just seemed like he was this. This very important reviewer, and I had I felt like I'd screwed up like initially, but yeah, so then, he read Whispers, he liked it, and then they had just launched Ink Heist podcast. So I think, maybe their third guest. I think, Hunter, weren't you their second?
I think I was, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Rich was in a closet sweating to death when he did my interview.
he's still in the closet every Saturday night.
Is he?
That's where he broadcasts.
Did they
from.
give him a fan at least? I remember he was dying from the heat when I was doing it.
He's been freezing lately. So yeah,
Get that man some insulation.
right. No, I love it because it's like he has his little cooler of beers, so you can like hear him unzipping to get another beer as we're going through.
Good man.
It's the Ink Heist Easter eggs. But yeah, so I keep feeling like I sort of stumbled and fell into that. I think it was just like a timing thing. And I also think that me being on there like tricked anyone else into thinking that, because you just said I had street cred. I'm like, where?
Well, I'm telling you because I wanted to bring that up because you said that your book, Whispers in the Dark, came out in 2018. But yeah. If you would ask me, I would say it came out at the end of 2019 because you seem to have just bubbled up to the surface. I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden I kept seeing you everywhere. I saw the book. I'm like, I just got to pull the trigger on this book. I'm super glad I did. And awesome that you're on Inkwell. So it's like you got the mo.
I keep saying like I just credit Rich and Shane with like basically tricking anyone into thinking that they should read my book. But when I am an extremely awkward introvert. And what? Yeah, oh God, so awkward. Like not like the cool awkward, like in high school, like the person that you wouldn't talk to because you're like, Jesus, really? Like just read
Michael
the room.
Scott, off-color jokes, awkward.
No, like not even speaking like cement mouth, like unless I just opened it to say something completely. No, but so so. When I started, I had even like cut off Facebook at the time that I published, and I was like, okay, well, anyways, it's out. My job is done. And as you know, that is really not the case. So I had to start like putting my toe in and trying to figure things out. And so I don't think it was until maybe June of 2019 that I got my first like review that people actually saw. It was with Sci-Fi and Scary, Sean Plummer. Mm-hmm. Picked it up and she put that out, and then it kind of just started gaining a little momentum from there. So yeah, it came out in 2018, but I didn't do anything with it for a while. So
yeah, but you've done, I don't know, you must have done something because I looked at your Twitter account. You got 3,000 followers. So
I don't know how
you had to be doing some work somewhere. I don't know. That's good. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's also been good for me from like again, from like a social anxiety introvert standpoint, to kind of be forced to do these things, and learn to put myself out there. But I feel like the biggest thing with it has been, you said a little bit ago that you got to be a reader to be a writer. Mm. And I feel like I was a reader first. And I feel like that, as much as I love writing, if I had to choose, what to do for the rest of my life, one or the other, read, and so I think in part it has been being able to get excited about other writers' stuff. I almost never talk about my own because I feel like I don't know. I'm too awkward to. I don't even know how.
No, I get that too. I mean, there's a level of self-promotion you have to do, but there's a lot of moments where you
know what though? I've listened to your podcast. I've listened to your podcast, and you have great chemistry with those guys, and you come off very natural. So, until you spilled your guts here, you're.
Well, I mean, I will say they're two great guys. I'm sure you've never met them in person, right?
I have not. No.
Either have I. They have beta read my books. I've dedicated books to them. Never met, but I know. They're just awesome people. Horror has the best people.
You're touching on something I wanted to go to, and that's especially in this time with everything being so crazy. I'm not an author, but I do some writing. But I'm a podcaster. Mm-hmm. You're on both authors and podcasters, and there's this community of people. Some people, we're all content generators in some way or another, and then there's also the people who listen to it. This horror community that, whether it's independent writers or like some of the Final Guys people that show up at our chat room when we do the live chat, this little subgroup of people that most of them you've never met in person in your life that become friends of yours. Like Jason on Final Guys. We've never met him in person, and he's like a great friend of ours now. And then just the other people that like now you get on Twitter and they're like the first person to chime in on something you say, and you're like, yeah, there's this person. I don't even know what the hell they look like because they have a fake picture, but
a pet peeve of Jack's.
You know, and now in this time,
Who are you?
I'm listening to a lot of podcasts with all this like time like by yourself and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like having a friend in the room with you. And you're like, oh, there's a new episode's up. Thank God I can hear those guys talk and feel like I'm part of the conversation. So
it's no, I mean, I agree. It's been, and it, you know, it just has been cool. Rich and Shane and I, they had done this before I came on, and then they created another Discord channel to add me. And so we actually just like message like all day long, you know? And so we kind of generally know what's going on with each other, you know, during the day. And it's like one of those things where with all this going on, like, you know, that like, I'm genuinely worried primarily about them, you know, and they feel the same, you know, but it's with Twitter. It's like, you know, some of the friends that I've made on there are like a primary concern of mine, because I'm lucky that my family, you know, and everybody here is safe, and I can keep in contact with them. But these people that are across the country, like I have these like apocalyptic nightmares of like, do I need a ham radio? Like, how am I going to know that everyone's going to be okay? You know,
let me tell you, I'm in the county that was the epicenter of it. So
Jesus,
get the ham radio.
Yeah, really. Yeah. 20 minutes from my house is New Rochelle, and the National Guard was there like a week ago.
Oh my God.
And
yeah, that's where I am. But it's funny because you couldn't have had social distancing at a better time, because I may physically be distant, but I've engaged with more people the last week than I do on a normal basis.
Yeah.
Because of all this stuff.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for it. It's, was talking to another parent, you know, and his kids are older, and you know, they're kind of bored being at home, but he's just like, my God, if this had happened when we were teenagers, like what the fuck? It's just, I mean,
I would have been out the door. I would have crawled out the window and gone to the woods and drank.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, by myself, whatever. I'd keep my social distance from everyone else anyway, but you know, I'd still be attempting to escape. Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. And yeah, I've been doing the same thing with podcasts. That's been the main difference for me in working. Like, I have enough to do. I support enough attorneys that I'm pretty much locked to my computer anyways the whole time I'm home, but I can play my podcasts at the same time. And that's been fantastic, because there's so many really good ones out there, that, you know, that I've wanted to listen to, but I don't really have a commute or much time to do so. So that has been, yeah, I think a benefit of it.
What's a couple that you've discovered that you really like right now? The Necronoma.com. I didn't realize that they had that kind of setup where they really, you know, take apart the social commentary on movies. Have you guys listened to them at all?
I have not.
I listened to them once. I have so many podcasts. I'm like,
right. Yeah.
The only one that I listen to and never miss an episode is Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast. Like that, I can't live without.
I didn't even know there was such a thing, but now that I know, I mean,
it's amazing.
Let me ask you guys a question. Since we're all podcasters, YouTubers, whatever, do you ever listen to podcasts and maybe sometimes you're impressed with somebody, but there's other times where you listen to some, like I'm going to try a new podcast, especially in the horror field, and you hear them talking and you're like, what are you doing a horror podcast where you have, I know that we talk over each other and mess up facts and whatever, but in general, we know what we're talking about. There's just some people when they're talking and they're getting these facts, I'm like, what are you doing with a horror podcast? And I want to like jump through the...
I watched Scream 1 and 2, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. I consider myself an expert. And I wrote an ebook about both, which is for free if you join my newsletter. Horror Lives.
If you give me a bad review,
oh, God.
I will trash you until the end of time.
Oh, God. I love bad reviews.
I'll admit, like, there's times, like, I've put on Bloody Good Horror, and somebody will say, will review a movie and I go, oh, they put into words so much better than I did how I felt about that movie. So I'm not just pointing out the people who suck, but they're out there.
Well, those are the fun ones. But I've been lucky with what I've listened to. I've not come across any that I didn't end up enjoying. And one I've been wanting to listen to is is it the Bastard Name, Angel Louise Colon's podcast? I think it's called The Bastard Name, something like that.
That's
but
my
yeah.
name.
The Bastard Name, Hunter.
That's
the
my
show.
name.
You ever listen to
Bastard Child?
You ever listen to Podcast on Elm Street?
No, is that good?
That's great. It's a married couple, and they know their stuff, and they're a lot of fun. They got a great website too.
Oh, good. Okay, well, I'll check that out.
I honestly thought of creating a podcast. I was going to call it "What the Fuck Is My Mom Talking About?" And I would just put a mic in front of her, bring up a topic, and just let it roll. It would be priceless. That's all the time. I said, if you get dementia, I'm not going to know the difference.
Those are the entertaining parents, you know. What a...
Okay, same old mom.
Laura, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Hunter and I continually have the dilemma of, I'll give you an example. I saw The Invisible Man. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to suck, and I really liked it a lot. So, anybody who asks me, I'm like, oh, it's great. You got to see it. But we have people in our lives who we call normies that aren't really.
She works with normies.
You work with normies. You know what I'm talking about. So you're like
ultra normies.
You have your horror fans, and then you've got your normies. And it's like not every movie that you like you can recommend to everybody. So a friend of mine last night texted me like at midnight. She watched Invisible Man, and she's like, she hated it. She was like, I'll give it 2 out of 10 stars. Totally. I was like, oh. And she's like, and we usually agree. And in my head, I was just saying, that's because you're a normie.
Exactly. I can't talk to you.
You need a different rating scale.
Yeah.
You totally do.
Yeah. 8 out of 10 horrors, 2 out of 10 normie.
I like getting people who kind of dip their toe every now and then horror. Go, hey, watch Midsummer. You're gonna love it.
Actually,
get the director's cut.
Yeah. Do you get to the theater much to see movies?
Oh,
I can't imagine.
God, no.
No.
We finally got to go. We saw Knives Out last month, I think, but we had to both take the day off work and go while Sebastian was at daycare because we were realizing the last movie we had seen was the first Jumanji, and it was the day that I was induced. It was like, so I was like, well, and that was basically the end of our lives, which I mean, as we knew it. And
as we knew it.
You get it back. Just so you know, you get it back.
I figure. And it is, it's utterly worth it, of course. But it is also it's like, nope, none of the things that you used to do are really going to be a thing for a while. So.
No.
Yeah.
When my kids were that age, it took me 4 years to write a book. And it was my first horror book took 4 years. Now, 3 months.
Bangs them out.
So
nice.
Makes a difference.
So do you have to read a book a week for your podcast?
Generally, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like
Jack's out.
Yeah, I can't. Because we have to watch movies, so new releases we kind of gauge them as to, we can wait for video for that one. Oh, we got to see that one in the theater if life allows.
If we ever go back.
But then you find yourself at night, oh, look, there's a new release I really wanted to see. But I only got one horror movie in this one. I really need to sneak another one in, so I got something to talk about. And around Oscar time, I have some friends, and we go try and see as many of the nominated things as possible. And some of my friends are going to see everything on the documentaries and everything that's on that list. I'm kind of just the main movies that are out, and it's the animated, kind of the bigger categories. But I push my lips. But then they'll be like, "Oh, did you watch this on Netflix yet?" I'm like, "No, I watched, the My Bloody Valentine remake last night."
Sands of Blood. Yeah, I know. God, we're like children. I swear to God. Well, it keeps us young. I'll tell you that much. Because I'm definitely not my dad at this age.
My mom she reads ludicrously fast. And so she has, for years been giving me stacks of books on like a weekly basis. But now it's like, she's like, do you want any, are they horror? No, I got no time. I can't be reading any mysteries. I don't have time for Lee Child. It's not. Also, she does this little thing where she'll sneak in a cuckoo in those lists. So in these stacks of books. So it's like, I'll read a few things and I'm like, oh, that's great. And then I'll read one. I'm like, that was utter crap. That's horrible. She's like, I know. I just wanted to see if you thought the same thing. I'm like, thanks.
Oh yeah. That's like people oh, this is terrible. Try it.
Yeah.
No.
She doesn't even give me that warning though. It's not like a sticky note on it that says, I think this one sucks. It's just like, just recommend it to me. And I remember calling her from a hotel. I had a work trip and I brought this book and it was the only one I brought. And I was so mad.
Oh my God.
Because I'm just like, this is horrible. I trusted you. Why do I keep trusting you? There are always cuckoos.
She doesn't want it in her house. It's your job to throw it away now.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the fortunate things that has happened is I've gotten to meet a lot of horror authors from doing this show and from knowing Hunter. So like Jonathan Jans and Brian Moreland and Jason Brandt, our co-host, and Adam Caesar, Glenn Rolfe.
Oh, I can't wait for his new book, Clown in a Cornfield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these guys,
fun.
and we've had them on, and they're all such great guys. And now you kind of consider them like friends, but I've read a lot of their books, and their books are damn good too. I didn't have to lie and be like, yeah, I really like your book. Like Brian Moreland, I read one of his books, and I immediately went and got another one because I was just like,
he's got a book coming out with Flame Tree Press, so he's coming back. See, I vet them for you, Jack, so I read all the books. So.
Yeah.
If they're good, they get through the gate.
You don't sneak the little cuckoos in for him.
No. Before we turned the mics on, we told you about our one cuckoo.
Yeah.
And you'll never find that episode again.
That's probably got to happen to everybody, once.
Totally.
It's,
After a decade of this, I'm surprised we don't have more.
Someone's going to get through.
Look, there is so much embarrassing.
Awesome.
Who is? Oh, Flame Tree, yeah.
Flame Tree, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's got Don Dioria heading it, who did Leisure and did Sam Hain. So it's that guy's. I say all the time, I'll meet him, I'm like, I bow to you, I'm not worthy. He goes, would you just stop it? Just sit down. But I mean, the guy's got the magic touch in horror.
When you're reading these books one per week, do you guys ever have the conversation like, whoa, that one's a little too big? Like, you obviously can't do it in a week.
Under the dome.
Is there a kind of it's got to be 250 pages or less, or is there just kind of nope, guys, we got to bite the bullet. This one's 475 pages.
Yeah, it's whatever the guest has, and for the most part, it's been. Part of it is that we have our schedule out pretty far now. So I can kind of gauge and see oh, okay, I've got this guest this week, but I have actually already read this book. So let me go ahead and get a head start on this one that is a longer one. And awesome. Usually I don't have too much of a hard time, finishing in one, but I will say I have started to understand the draw of novellas. Because
yeah, they're awesome.
And
they're awesome to write.
That. Yes, I have. I recently wrote my first one because I've been trying. I write. Yes, you mentioned Rich and Shane had beta read for you, and I owe them so many words at this point because they beta read this just utter monstrosity for me. That's with my agent now, right. And I had cut it down 20,000 words to get it to 130,000.
What?
Right? We had Chad Lutzke on, and he was like, "That's 4 of my books." What?
For someone who can't find time to write, geez.
But apparently, I can't shut up when I do. So.
All right, I got a question.
Yeah.
I beta read for Hunter a couple of times, and
yes.
I'm curious. I don't know whether I did a good job or a bad job. The last one I did for you, you were like, I need this in a week, so I had to bang through it. So it wasn't like I even had a lot of time. I just here's some notes I have for you.
That's a true friend right there.
Yep. Hurry.
But what do you guys look for from a beta reader?
Uh, for me, part of the reason I asked Rich and Shane to hop on that one was because, as reviewers, and they write, they will, deny it and say they're not, but they actually both write, and they both write very well. So they know a lot of what they don't like, so, and they're both very good at being honest. And so that's the main thing I'm looking for, is somebody who can tell me if there's a pacing problem, because that, as you can imagine, that's an issue with a 130,000 word book. Yeah. And, logic holes. And also, like I said, I'm kind of a sucker for a love story. And so you fall in love with your own characters, and nobody else gives a shit what they did, that morning or whatever. So like, I like to hear like, hey, this is dragging it down. This needs to be knocked out. So it's a lot of pacing things, a lot of logic things, and just the ability to just, say it, because I don't know if you've had this problem with it. Is it hard to like point out problems? Do you feel bad about it when you do, or are you able to just be like, nope, this sucks in all caps, and now you're going to need to fix that?
Yeah, I look for honesty. Just tell me what works, what doesn't work. Jack, I remember Sinister Entity. You told me a couple of things that made a big difference in just the order of the way things were happening and stuff. So that was great.
There was something in Sinister.
Yes men. I'm saying I just don't want yes men. Just tell me what if it sucks. In
the two I wrote, I know there was certain scenes that I suggested it go a different way or something happened, and you did it in both of them. But I always wondered, like, was that enough? Did I give you enough? Or just like, I try not to be too nice, or trying to balance it. It's this compliment. Here's what you need to work on, and another compliment. Give them the sandwich.
Exactly. Yeah, the sandwich.
Yeah, and that's fine. Because beta readers, it's tough to find good ones that you can really go out. But if you find people who love the genre, then they know all the beats that you're supposed to hit. So even if they're not writers themselves and don't know how the sausage is made, you want them to like sausage a lot. So, and that's the key. And hopefully they're there when you need them. I have about 10 I can choose from that they're just phenomenal. I just try not to use the same people over and over, because I don't want to be like, oh God, another one.
That's why I feel so bad, is because I feel like I keep like inundated, because I started writing short fiction recently, and I've managed to bang out like a short story like every weekend for the last little bit. And then I'll be like, you want to look at it? They do. And it's great, because it's like instant feedback. And, but I'm also like I feel like the scale is very heavy on my side now. I'm like, okay, what can I do for you? Because
exactly. Ship them beer. They'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Get Rich some insulation for his closet. Yes. Something like that.
So this 130,000 word opus, Miss Tolkien.
Yeah.
Is this the next book that you're looking to put out in the world, or is there another one in the mix? There's a few things in the mix right now. So the 130,000, it's a horror noir kind of. And it's called Silent Key, and that's with my agent to see if it's ready to shop. I've been through a few rounds of revisions, and I think it is, but I always think it is, so whatever. And then I have also written a thriller, Ghost Free, which was his request. He's like, please, horror is a little bit hard to shop. Try doing something without ghosts. And so I wrote a thriller, and I have no idea how I did with it, because no one's read it yet, so I'm just waiting on him to come back to me with it. And I'm like, I don't know. That is actually an 80,000 words. So I feel like that's a little more. There you go.
Yeah. A little more
spot.
reasonable. Yeah. And then I've got a novella, that I'm not entirely sure what to do with at the moment, because I'm not sure if that's something he's going to want to shop, or if I can maybe shop it myself. It's kind of it's horror, but it's slightly more ambiguous horror than what I've written before. So,
hey, if you need advice, just come to me.
You're going to be sorry you said
that. With the novella.
Yeah.
With the novella, please. I got to write 3 books this year.
You're going to be pounding them out there under quarantine in that attic.
Oh my God, it's been great. It has been awesome. I'm getting popcorn lung from all the dust up here, but I'll be fine.
I like your belfry, by the way. That's very.
Thank you very much.
You've got a lot going on there.
I decorated it myself. What you don't see is to the side is whenever I do podcasts, I'll bring beer. There is just a table of empties over here. And for some reason, it's comforting that they're there. And I can look back and go, oh, yeah, I have a problem.
But it's memorialized right there next to you.
That's right. Very happy.
And it's funny, you mentioned sausage earlier, how the sausage is made. And all I can think of is the last supermarket run I went to, the shelves were empty. And when I went to get meat to freeze, there was like nothing left. I have like a fridge full of sausage. That was like all that was left.
Get bacon and hot dogs.
I'm going to have...
It's cured. It's good.
I'm going to be 400 pounds at the end of this 3-week period.
I'm so tired of carbs. Like I would never thought that I would have said that, but now I'm just like, oh, I want actual food.
We're just starting here. It's gonna get rough real fast now.
I bought a ton of potatoes, and I was thinking about this tonight. I was like, I probably need to cook a bunch of these and freeze them because they're all going to start sprouting pretty soon, and then
all I know is we're going to be eating so much rice and pasta. Nobody's going to need any toilet paper. Nothing's coming out. It's just all backed up. And I'm looking at the time. It's time we washed our hands.
Yes.
It's time we disinfected and then go to bed. Because Armageddon starts here tomorrow in New York. True Armageddon.
Yeah, the lockdown starts like tomorrow at like 8:00 at night.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Starts here tonight, actually. Oh, it started now. So everything is closed except places where you can get food and hospitals. That's it.
What happens if you leave the house? Are you allowed to?
You will be shot on sight. No, I have no idea.
No, but they're just like waiting outside.
With the notification that we got about the beaches and parks closing, they were closing tonight at 8, and basically they said that you could get fined if you're out. And literally, I live in walking distance to a park, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do a lap every day. I don't have to get up early before work. I could just go at lunch. And now I'm like, I guess I need to find a different route now.
Just going to run around the attic.
Yeah, right.
So, Laurel, where could people follow? Oh, go ahead, Jack.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, all right. Where can people follow you, find out everything that's going on, connect with you, talk to you during the apocalypse?
During the apocalypse, Twitter is the best place. It's at Hightowarlourel. I do have a website that was beautifully designed by a very good friend of mine, and I do love it, but I don't do anything with it. So yeah, but I'm a Twitter addict, so I'm on there quite a bit.
Oh, good to know. I'm gonna be bugging the crap out of you now.
And it's inkheist.com, right? For Ink Heist?
Yes, yeah, and there is a Twitter account at Ink Heist, and Rich and Shane are of course both on that, and they run the Twitter account, so it's always fun to try to figure out which one of them is posting as Ink Heist.
We got to get them on here sometime.
Mm-hmm. I can usually tell if I start reading enough.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Rich. Oh, there's Shane. Well, it was awesome having you on. Thank you for cross-pollinating podcasts, and thank you, Rich and Shane, for getting you out of your non-disclosure and your non-compete, and you can come here and talk with us. That's awesome. We'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a great time. And you guys stay safe, with your lockdowns. This is, I worry about my Twitter peeps, guys.
I'm low on whiskey already.
Oh my God, Hunter, you need more.
Sorry, we got 40 bottles of wine. We're fine.
Okay. High five.
No, high elbow.
That's right.
High elbow. Yeah.
I just do the live long and prosper.
That's good. Yeah, that one works too.
Get back, sucker. All right, Jack, why don't you take us out?
All
Jack,
right.
always sings when we leave.
Laurel, thanks for joining us. It was great to meet you. And everybody, we'll see you next time on MONSTERMEN.
MONSTERMEN. Da-na-na-na-na. You can't hear the music, but I hear it in my head. Da-na.
Monster.